Welcome to the St. George's Episcopal Church, Washington, D.C. Black Litany of Saints for 2022. This presentation is brought to you by the Music and Arts Committee in part as commemoration for African American History Month. The program is a compilation of both music and oratories. Join us as we celebrate our women, clergy, and men honorees, a majority of which who are people that had connection as congregates at St. George's Episcopal Church. You are the light that gives light to the world. A city that is built on a hill cannot be hidden, and a people don't hide a light under a bowl. They put it on a lampstand so that the light shines for all the people in the house. In the same way, you should be a light for other people. Live so that they will see the good things you do. Matthew 5:14 through 16a. (2022) Women Honorees. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Maya Angelou. Jesus answered, "If people love me, they will obey my teaching. My Father will love them, and we will come to them and make our home with them." John 14:23.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Jesus gave it to me. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, Jesus gave it to me. I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus gave it to me. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Woo! Let it shine.
2022 Women Honorees. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou. Marguerite Annie Johnson was born in St. Louis, Missouri, the second child of Bailey and Vivian Baxter Johnson. Her older brother, Bailey Jr., nicknamed her Maya, meaning my or Maya sister. Maya was a writer, poet, and civil rights activist who published 7 autobiographies, 3 books of essays, and several books of poetry. She has also been credited with acting, writing, producing, directing plays, movies, and public television programs for over 50 years. And she received many awards and over 50 honorary degrees. Maya became a poet and writer after a string of odd jobs in her young adulthood. Later, she was very active in civil rights and worked with Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Malcolm X, helping him to build the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Later, in the 1990s, she made approximately 80 appearances a year on the lecture circuit, which she continued in her 80s. In 1993, she recited her poem On the Pulse of the Morning at the first inauguration of Bill Clinton, making her the second poet to make an inaugural recitation since Robert Frost at John F. Kennedy's in 1961, and the first woman of color to do so. She was respected as a spokesperson for Black people and women, and her works have been considered a defense of Black culture. Her most notable works are I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, On the Pulse of the Morning, and Still I Rise. As an aside, Maya's son and only child, Guy Johnson, who was also a poet, author, civil rights activist, and politician, died at age 77 last week on February 17th, 2022. His mom, Marguerite Annie Johnson, best known as Dr. Maya Angelou, departed this life on May 28th, 2014, at age 86. She did the best she could, and when she knew better, she did better.
Falva Joanne Logan Duncan. Falva Joanne Logan Duncan was born on November 7th, 1926, in Washington, D.C. Known as Joanne, she grew up in Leroy Park and attended Mott Elementary, Shaw Junior High, and Dunbar High Schools. She graduated cum laude from Minor Teachers College in 1949 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Geography and Science. She later pursued graduate studies at Howard University and Federal City College. At Minor, she was initiated into Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and later became a Silver Star and Life member in the Xi Omega Graduate Chapter in Washington, D.C. Serving 26 years in the D.C. public school system, Joanne taught at Garnet, Patterson, Randall, and Kelly Miller Junior High Schools. She received special recognition as an outstanding teacher of science and mathematics from the Washington Academy of Science and the D.C. Council on Engineering and Architecture Societies, in addition to the Outstanding Service Award as a Junior Red Cross chapter sponsor. Joanne devoted her life to teaching and encouraging her students to excel academically, often providing shoes and clothing to her most vulnerable students. She opened her home to host end-of-the-year lunches for students, developing a close bond with many who remained in touch until her death. Joanne was deeply religious, and her faith was strengthened after joining St. George's in her early teens. In June 1958, she married William Wilkins Duncan, a classmate from Dunbar and Minor, who had also joined St. George's. To this union was born one daughter, Rose Marie Logan Duncan. At the age of 40, Joanne was diagnosed with kidney disease, but designed a diet that kept her from requiring dialysis for the next 20 years. While supported by family and friends, it was her faith that strengthened and sustained her through health challenges from dialysis during the last years of her life. A devoted member of St. George's, she served as substitute organist, altar guild director for 44 years, Episcopal Church women president, member and secretary of the vestry, teacher and treasurer of the church school, member of the search committee for the third rector, and auxiliary board member of the Episcopal Center for Children in the diocese. Due to her love of liturgy and the preaching of the gospel, she gave the pulpit as a memorial gift to the new church in honor of her mother, Rosalie Gaskins Logan. In October 1991, the Altar Guild established the Falva Logan Duncan Religious Educational Award in recognition of their past leader, to support parish members interested in enhancing their spiritual growth through coursework or retreats. She was also honored with the first St. George's ECW President's Award posthumously in May 1993. Falva Logan Duncan was an avid reader, world traveler, musician, skilled cook, and baker. She loved attending formal dances, enjoyed entertaining with her late husband, spending time with extended family, organizing family reunions, and researching genealogy. This gentle soul died on December 11, 1992, at the age of 66. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. From 2 Timothy 4:7. She did the best she could, and when she knew better, she did better.
Myrtle Grace Harris was born in Pittsboro, North Carolina. She attended elementary through high school there and later attended St. Augustine's Junior College in Raleigh, North Carolina. Upon her return to Pittsboro, she worked for the Chatham County School System. In the late 1920s, she moved to Washington, D.C., and worked various jobs in the service industry. In the early 1940s, she was hired by the United States Government Printing Office, from which she retired 29 years later. Myrtle joined St. George's Episcopal Church in 1930 and was an active member of the Dorcas Guild, the Rector's Aid Committee, the Altar Guild, the Parish Guild, the Senior Citizens Club, the Daughters of the King, and the Episcopal Church Women. She also enjoyed social activities with family members, co-workers, and friends. She was a member of the Deckets Club, which met often to play cards and travel. Throughout her life, she cared for family and friends and supported them in any way she could. After retirement, Myrtle volunteered at the Red Cross, the Kennedy Center, Arena Stage, and for many activities at St. George's. In the late 1990s, she moved in with her daughter, Barbara Collins, after realizing that she could no longer live alone. She functioned independently until a broken hip resulted in her becoming bedridden. During her illness, she remained positive and seldom complained of pain or any other discomfort. Myrtle passed away on March 6, 2014, at the age of 106. She did the best she could, and when she knew better, she did better.
Mary Alice Brown Smith was educated in D.C. public schools and graduated from Dunbar High School in 1946. She then attended Howard University, graduating in 1950, and following that, She earned a Master of Library Science degree from Catholic University. She married William Francis Smith in 1952, and they were as one until his death in 1972. Mrs. Smith's entire career as a librarian was spent at the Library of Congress, where she progressed to various positions of responsibility. She was loved and respected by her co-workers for her dedication, kindness, and graciousness. She retired from the library in 1986. Mary began her membership at St. George's at a very young age. Over the years, she participated in many activities, some of which included the Altar Guild, the Parish Guild, and the Ushers. Additionally, she was a member of the vestry. She chaired the Christian Education Committee for over 7 years. She was a charter member of the St. George's Investment Club, and in 1997, she was honored by the St. George's Episcopal Church Women as Woman of the Year. Mary was greatly admired for her devotion to family and friends. Her main interests were traveling, cooking, reading, and enjoying the theater arts. Mary B. Smith departed this life on January 18, 1998. She did the best she could, and when she knew better, she did better.
Rosalind Yvonne McBrayer Wall was a native Washingtonian who grew up in Upper Bloomingdale. She attended Mott Elementary, Shore Junior High, and Dunbar Senior High Schools. During World War II, while still in high school, Rosalind worked in the Department of the Navy, keeping track of our submarines. Rosalind attended Howard University and Minor Teachers College, where she earned a Bachelor of Science degree in education. She later earned a Master of Education degree from Bowie State University. Rosalind taught science at Brown, Taft, and Ribaud Junior High Schools. She was a recipient of several Best Teacher Awards and served as the chair of the DCPS Junior High School Science Committee. She was also privileged to teach science to young patients at the National Institutes of Health Clinical Center and taught several summer courses at Howard University. Rosalind participated in National Science Foundation summer programs at the American University, Hunter College, San Diego State University, and the University of Maryland. Rosalind positively influenced the lives of thousands of our youth during her career. This was evident over the years, as while out and about, she was constantly approached by former students with "Hello, Mrs. Wall," and the conversations would ensue with them updating her on their lives. Rosalind was a devoted mother and grandmother, lovingly known as Mother Dear. She was preceded in death by her husband of 38 years, John Mack Wall Sr. She was a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, Xi Omega chapter, the Phi Sigma Pi National Honor Fraternity, the Lions Club, the Association of Biology Teachers, the District of Columbia Science Teachers Association, the Dunbar Teachers Association, serving as president for a period, and the National Association of University Women. Rosalind was a dedicated, lifelong member of St. George's Episcopal Church, where she served on the vestry and was a member of the Altar Guild, the Episcopal Church Women, the Choir, and the Daughters of the King, where she held the position of president for 13 years. Despite her full schedule, Rosalind always reserved time to entertain family and friends on holidays and special occasions. She enjoyed playing piano, baking, sewing, crocheting, playing board games and cards, and solving crossword puzzles. Rosamond was a world traveler. She also drove across country on several occasions. When faced with challenges, Ross always said, "This too shall pass." She consistently maintained the view that life is beautiful. Rosamond died on October 15, 2016, at the age of 90. She did the best she could, and when she knew better, she did better.
Minnie Louise Anderson Young. Minnie Louise Anderson Young was born on December 19, 1922. Although a native of Decatur County, Georgia, she considered herself a Washingtonian. After graduating from Dunbar High School, she earned an elementary school teaching certificate from Minor Teachers College, now UDC, and a Master of Arts degree from New York University. She then pursued additional studies at George Washington, Howard, and Catholic universities. In 1963, she married another longtime St. Georgian, Cy Young Jr. They had a great life together and traveled extensively and often throughout Greece, the Orient, the Caribbean, and North America until his death in 1988. She was considered an outstanding elementary school teacher and retired from D.C. Public Schools in 1978 after 34 years of service. She was a Golden Life and Diamond Jubilee member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority and an active member of the Washington, D.C. alumni chapter. As a member of St. George's for 75 years, she was significantly involved in many ministries, which included the Music and Arts Committee, the North Capitol Street, Rhode Island Avenue Ecumenical Council, the Senior Citizens Club, the Altar Guild, the Gage Eckington St. George's Community Partnership, Women, where she also was the recipient of the Woman of the Year Award, Assistant Treasurer of St. George's, and co-chair of the 75th St. George's Anniversary Souvenir Booklet. She loved life, through which she enjoyed reading, photography, needlepoint, flower gardening, theater, and other cultural and social events. Her many contributions to St. George's include two that can still be seen today: the cross above the atrium and a gold set of liturgical vestments made by Charlwood Studios of New York. Perhaps her most valuable and notable contribution is the Minnie Louise Anderson Young Scholarship Fund, MLA, which was created by her estate and will. This fund annually gives scholarships to deserving and academically focused high school seniors entering their first year of post-secondary education. As of the end of 2021, over 80 scholarships have been awarded. MLAY committee members are Fern Barrow, Jan Barrow, Gloria Ducker, Gail Shuford, Kendall Turner, Karen Turner, and Mary Ann Wilmer. Louise departed this life on June 6, 2012. She did the best she could, and when she knew better, she did better.
And then
Is there any wilderness of woe. So let us all to glory go. Is there anybody here who loves my Jesus? Anybody here who loves my Lord? I want to know if you love my Jesus. I want to know if you love my Lord. Religion is a blooming rose, and none but them who feel it know. Is there anybody here who loves my Jesus? Anybody here who loves my Lord? I want to know if you love my Jesus. I want to know if you love my Lord. When I was blind and could not see, King Jesus brought the light to me. Is there anybody here who loves my Jesus? Anybody here who loves my Lord? I want to know if you love my Jesus. I want to know if you love my Lord. When every star refuses to shine, I know King Jesus will be mine. Is there anybody here who loves my Jesus? Anybody here who loves my Lord? I want to know if you love my Jesus. I want to know. Do Lord.
2022 clergy honorees. Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. Desmond Tutu. With God's power working in us, God can do much, much more than anything we can ask or imagine. Ephesians 3:20.
Franklin Delton Turner was born July 19, 1933, to the late James Turner and Dora Streeter Turner in Norwood, North Carolina. He graduated from Livingstone College and Berkeley Divinity School at Yale. He continued his graduate studies at General Theological Seminary in New York and also studied at St. George's College in Jerusalem, Israel. In 1965, he was ordained as a transitional deacon in the Diocese of New Jersey in Newark, and later that year he was ordained a priest in the Diocese of Texas in Dallas. Father Turner was installed as the second rector of St. George's in October 1966 and inherited the planning for the new church building. Known as a strong advocate of social involvement and community service, Turner worked to engage congregation members in community work, though many had moved out of the immediate neighborhood. Proposed by Mayor Walter Washington, a resident in the community, the Committee on Community Improvement was created in 1967 to address the needs of the changing neighborhoods to engage residents. Fred and Louise Taliaferro Spruill, along with Father Turner, spearheaded this effort. By 1969, the new edifice was completed and the first service was held in June of that year. Turner worked to broaden the worship experience beyond the traditional service by adding more contemporary music, the sung family Eucharist, to the existing 9 a.m. service. The CCI Glee Club, comprised primarily of neighborhood youth, was formed and performed folk and more contemporary religious music for the service. St. George's commissioned the Hallelujah Mass, written and composed by John W. Gravitt. The CCI Glee Club recorded the Mass setting about 45 times in 1970. Father Turner was known for his leadership in the diocese. He helped organize the Washington Episcopal Clergy Association and served as its first president. His ministry at St. George's ended in 1972 when he was appointed by presiding Bishop John Hines to serve as the staff coordinator of the Commission on Black Ministries of the Episcopal Church's Executive Council that later developed into the Office of Black Ministries in the presiding bishop's office. Turner was later elected as the suffragan bishop for the Episcopal Diocese of Pennsylvania. Out of some 900 men who had up to that point in time been elected bishop in the Episcopal Church, Turner was approximately the 27th priest elected. He was also the first Black bishop of the then 205-year-old diocese. He served in the post till his retirement in 2000, but remained connected to St. George's. Last summer, the Union of Black Episcopalians celebrated the 40th anniversary of Lift Every Voice and Sing. The Union's dedication in part reads, "Today, as we celebrate the 40th anniversary of Lift Every Voice and Sing, we also celebrate an inspired idea in the minds and the hands of people with a will to bring the dream to life. The only way that the song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, found its way into the 1982 General Episcopal Hymnal was because of the 1981 publication of the original Lift Every Voice and Sing. We are grateful for the life and legacy of the late Right Reverend Franklin D. Turner. His vision and foresight brought a hymnal to fruition and paved the way for study and documentation of our musical heritage. Bishop Turner died December 31st, 2013. Father Harold Lewis, who died December 31st, 2021, preached Bishop Turner's service. That service is available to be downloaded.
Reverend Dr. Richard Cornish Martin. Richard Cornish Martin graduated from the Central High School of Philadelphia and received the Bachelor of Arts in Science from the Pennsylvania State University, the Master of Divinity from the Virginia Theological Seminary, and the Doctor of Ministry from the Howard University School of Divinity. He was ordained to the diaconate in 1961 and to the priesthood in 1962 in Central Pennsylvania. Father Martin began his ministry as an Episcopal chaplain to Penn State University and Associate Rector of St. Andrew's Church, State College, Pennsylvania. He served as Episcopal chaplain to the George Washington University, assistant at St. Paul's Parish, K Street, where he had been a seminarian assistant, eventually becoming associate, and later recalled as 8th rector of St. Paul's. He was rector at St. George's from 1973 to 1989. As St. George's third rector, he focused on enriching the liturgical and spiritual life. Ashes and pains of the new building and the concern about neighborhood children at St. George's were obviated by a sense of well-being growing out of the congregation's warm response to liturgy, beautifully done with biblical preaching and careful pastoral care of the sick and shut-in. Father Martin reinstituted 3 services, all Eucharist, restored the daily celebrations, and scheduled evenings sung Eucharist on major holy days. He led St. George's into greater awareness of global Anglicanism, and his pulpit was graced frequently by preachers from overseas. In 1980, St. George's gloriously celebrated the 50th anniversary with the Right Reverend John T. Walker, Bishop of Washington, present. The next year, St. George's successfully petitioned for a change in status from a separate congregational to a parish. During Father Martin's tenure as rector, the Committee for Community Improvement evolved into the Gage Eckington St. George's Community Partnership Program, serving children with after-school and summer enrichment programs. The SG Investment Club, organized by Mr. Grafton Daniels, was started in 1982. Reverend Martin was honored several times by nomination to the episcopacy, Diocese of Washington, Milwaukee, Botswana, and Northern Indiana. He served over 8 terms on the Standing Committee in the Diocese of Washington, 6 times as its secretary, the Commission on Ministry, and was editor of the Diocesan Cycle of Prayer. His accomplishments were many. He was also the founder of the Cathedral Nave Clergy. Other committees he served on included the Ad Commissions, which included Peace and Justice, Liturgy and Music, the Diocesan Council, and Diocesan Court of Appeals. His civic involvements included the D.C. Board of Professional Responsibility on the Court of Appeals, the Research Board of Children's Hospital, the Board of Directors of the Prevention of Blindness Society, and the Committee for Community Improvement. For 46 years, he was superior of the Society of Mary, American Region. Father Martin served on the Council of the Guild of All Souls. He was the first priest admitted to the Society of the Holy Cross in the United States in 1971. He served as its deputy master. He served on the Board of Trustees of Nashotah House Theological Seminary, as well as the founder and convener of the Anglo-Catholic Rectors. You can read more about Father Martin in his book titled Called, Memoirs of a Black Priest, paperback, February 19th, 2016. It was published after his death. Amazon writes that Called is the story of an extraordinary man who devoted his life to serving the Lord and, in doing so, made lasting positive changes within the church and touched thousands of lives in the process.
James Astor Ross. James Astor Ross was born June 18, 1922, in Frederiksted, St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. He worked as a lab technician at Frederiksted Municipal Hospital until 1947. During World War II, he served in the Army of the Asiatic Pacific Theater, received the World War II Victory Medal, and was honorably discharged in 1946. From 1948 to 1952, he attended Howard University and worked at Bolling Air Force Base, Walter Reed Medical Center, and Andrews Air Force Base as a civilian research technician. In 1953, he worked as a lab research technician in the Department of Pediatrics and Child Health at Freedman's Hospital, now Howard University Hospital. Then, while studying advanced laboratory techniques at Roosevelt Hospital in New York, he was transferred to the sickle cell unit in 1954 and recognized for dedicated and distinguished service. He retired in 1983. He joined St. George's Episcopal Church in 1947. He was a life member of the Order of St. Vincent and president of the Washington chapter from 1963 to 1972. He served as director of the St. George's chapter from 1963 to 1975, treasurer of the National Capital Area of the Brotherhood of St. Andrew, and was a member of the Order of the Holy Cross. He served as chief acolyte with 4 rectors of St. George's. Additionally, he was a Sunday school teacher, vestry member, and convener of several parish commissions and ministry. He was a licensed lay reader, a chalicist, and a lay minister. He was married to longtime St. Georgian Bernice McMillan. Between 1988 to 1990, he served as lay minister in charge at St. George's. He was awarded Man of the Year in 1966 and 1977 and lay Minister of the Year in 1992. He was recognized for many years of faithful service to the St. George's community and in 2002 for 72 years of service on God's altar as an acolyte. He enjoyed reading, dancing, traveling, and spending time with his family and friends. He died on January 5, 2004 in Washington, D.C. at the age of 81 years and was buried at St. Paul's Episcopal Anglican Church Cemetery in Frederiksted, St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. He did his little bits of good and overwhelmed the world.
God is my protection. God is my all and all. God is my guide and my direction. God is my all and all. God is my joy in times of sorrow. God is my all and all. God is today and tomorrow. God is my all and all. God is the joy and the strength of my life. He moves all pain, misery, and strife. He promised to keep me, never to leave me. He's never ever come short of his word. I've got to fast and pray, stay in the narrow way. I've got to keep clean every day. I want to go with him when he comes back. I've come too far and I'll never turn back. God is, God is, God is, God
(2022) Men Honorees. Always focus on the front windshield and not the rearview mirror. Colin Powell. Let them praise the name of the Lord, for his name alone is exalted. His glory is above earth and heaven. Psalm 148:13.
Colin Powell. Colin Powell, the son of Jamaican immigrants, grew up in the Harlem and South Bronx sections of New York City. He attended the City College of New York, served in the Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC, and received a Bachelor of Science degree. He then entered the Army, served in Vietnam in 1962-63 and 1968-69, and studied further at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. In 1972, he took his first political position as a White House Fellow and soon became assistant to Frank Colucci, the Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget. For the next few years, he held various posts in the Pentagon and elsewhere, and in 1983 became Senior Military Assistant to Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger. In 1987, he joined the staff of the National Security Council as Deputy to Colucci, and later that year, President Ronald Reagan appointed him to succeed Colucci as Defense Secretary. In April 1989, Powell became a four-star general, and in August, President Bush nominated him chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. As chairman, he played a leading role in planning the invasion of Panama in 1989 and the Desert Shield and the Desert Storm operations of the Persian Gulf crisis. He retired from the military in 1993 and later joined the Republican Party and spoke out on national issues. In 2001, he was appointed Secretary of State by President George W. Bush. However, he saw his influence in the White House weaken and announced his resignation in 2004. His books include the autobiography, My American Journey, and It Worked for Me in Life and Leadership. He always focused on the front windshield and not the rearview mirror.
Wayman Jefferson Clinton. Wayman Jefferson Clinton was born in Bolivar, West Virginia on August 11, 1922. As a result of his father, Charles Clinton, being killed in an automobile accident when he was 10, he was primarily reared by his mother, Elise Clinton. Music was an integral part of his life. His mother was a church organist, and he and his sister performed many vocal duets. They also performed together as musicians as he played the violin and she the piano. He graduated from Storer College in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, where he played in the Storer Orchestra for 4 years until his graduation. Wayman went on to serve in the Army in World War II, where he received the rank of Technician 4th grade. He attended Army Administration School, and before his honorable discharge, he received the following medals: Good Conduct, American Campaign, World War II Victory and European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign. He also received a Bronze Service Star, Honorable Service lapel buttons, and a sharpshooter badge with rifle bar. As a young man, he met and married Louise Clinton, and from this union came 2 children, Yolande and Charles. He was, however, preceded in death by his wife and son. Wayman's long-term commitment to family, job, and church are evidenced by the way he lived his life. He held positions with the U.S. Treasury Department and the U.S. Census Bureau, from which he retired after 35 years of service. A member of St. George's for almost 60 years, he was the last surviving member of the original St. George's Senior Choir. His love for music developed into a hobby and ownership of a tremendous and valuable record collection, all of which he donated to St. George's in his will. Wayman Clinton departed this life on August 7, 2010. He always focused on the front windshield and not the rearview mirror.
Grafton James Daniels. Grafton James Daniels was born on March 8, 1911, in Roslyn, Virginia. As an only child, but blessed with 2 half-sisters, he was educated in D.C. public schools. He finished Dunbar and spent some time at Howard University. He was married to Maggie M. Leonard, who predeceased him, and 2 children were born of that union. Danny began his work career at the government printing office, but later transferred to the U.S. Geological Survey, from which he retired. After retirement, he became involved with various investment instruments, both selling securities and establishing investment clubs around the area, notably the Progressive 20, the Mint Investors, St. George's Investment Club, and perhaps the one he was most proud, St. George's Junior Investment Club for children. Socially, he was a member of the Regular Buddies, Prince Hall Social Lodge No. 1, and Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. He enjoyed playing pinochle, bridge, and chess, and taught his family members those games as youngsters. And he was an avid duck pin bowler. At St. George's, Danny was the church treasurer for many years. He directed the choir, belonged to the Men of St. George's, the vestry, and worked tirelessly in those organizations. During his life, he was also involved with other Episcopal churches, primarily directing choirs. St. George's is still the home church for his daughter, Carmen Campbell, and his grandson, Grafton Daniels Jr. He always focused on the front windshield and not the rear view mirror.
Vernon Jordan Jr. Vernon Jordan Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and died March 1, 2021 in Washington, D.C. He was an attorney, civil rights leader, business consultant, and influential power broker. He grew up in Georgia and studied political science at DePaul University and earned a Bachelor of Arts degree. While at DePaul, he was a compelling public speaker. He then went to Howard University and received a Juris Doctorate degree in 1960. He then joined an effort to desegregate colleges and universities and helped lead Black student Charlene Hunter through a group of whites protesting the University of Georgia's integration policy in 1961. He was named Field Secretary for the NAACP in Georgia from 1961 to 1963, and then became Director of the Southern Regional Council for the Voter Education Project from 1964 to 1968. In 1966, Vernon was a prominent political figure at President Lyndon B. Johnson's Civil Rights Conference. Moreover, as director of the United Negro College Fund in 1970, he raised $10 million in contributions that benefited African American institutions. While serving as a president of the National Urban League from 1972 to 1981, Vernon joined corporate boards such as American Express and Dow Jones, thereby using business connections to press the case for minority hiring and advancement. He survived a white supremacist assassination attempt in 1980, but was wounded by gunshot. He then moved into private practice, joining the Washington, D.C. office of a Texas law firm, and quietly exerted his influence in corporate and political affairs for an increasing elite clientele. He served as a key advisor in the 1990s to President Bill Clinton and advised his political campaign in 1992. He also helped to guide the new president's transition into office and published an autobiography, Vernon Can Read. He always focused on the front windshield and not the rearview mirror.
Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier was a native of Cat Island, Bahamas. He grew up in poverty as the son of farmers, with his father, who was also a cab driver. He had little formal education, and at the age of 15 was sent to Miami to live with his brother. At 18, Sidney went to New York, did menial jobs, and slept in a bus terminal toilet stall. A brief stint in the Army as a worker at a veterans hospital was followed by more menial jobs in Harlem. An impulsive audition at the American Negro Theater was rejected so forcefully that Sidney dedicated the next 6 months to overcoming his accent and improving his performance skills. On his second try, he was accepted and won a bit part in the Broadway production of Lysistrata, for which he earned good reviews. By the end of 1949, he accepted an offer to work with Daryl Zanuck in the film No Way Out. His performance as a doctor treating a white bigot got him plenty of notice and led to more roles, although they were less interesting and prominent than those white actors obtained. But 7 years later, Poitier got roles that catapulted him into a category rarely, if ever, achieved by an African American male of that time, that of leading man. One of these films, The Defiant Ones, earned him his first Academy Award nomination as Best Actor, and 5 years later, in 1963, he won that Oscar for Lilies of the Field, and he was the first African American to win for performance in a leading role. He remained active on stage and screen, as well as in the civil rights movement. His roles in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and To Serve with Love, both in 1967, were landmarks in helping to break down some social barriers between blacks and whites. Poitier's talent, conscience, integrity, and likability placed him on equal footing with the white movie stars of the day. He took on directing and producing in the 1970s, achieving success in both arenas. Sidney Poitier departed this life on January 6, 2022, at the age of 94. He always focused on the front windshield and not the rear view mirror.
Dr. Floyd Lawrence White. A true native Washingtonian, Dr. Floyd Lawrence White attended D.C. public schools and graduated from Armstrong High School in 1944. He then served in World War II and was honorably discharged as First Sergeant in 1946. Yet he continued to serve in the Enlisted Reserve Corps and received 2 Bronze Stars for serving his country with distinction. He married his high school sweetheart and fellow St. Georgian, Cornelia Spate, in 1945, and for 52 years they had many happy times together, working in community, civic, and religious activities. He received a Bachelor of Science degree in Pharmacy, 1951, from Howard University, a Doctor of Science degree, 1975, from the Metropolitan Collegiate Institute of London in England, a Master of Business and Public Administration degree, 1977, from the College of Graduate Studies, Southeastern University in Washington, D.C. Floyd had a long and eventful career. As a student at Howard, he began his pharmacy internship at Ethical Prescription Pharmacy in D.C. After his graduation, he was hired as a pharmacist and then manager. Later, he and Canary purchased the establishment together, forming a corporation. They served as president and secretary, respectively, in 1960. In June of 1996, and 36 years later, Ethical Prescription Pharmacy, Inc. closed its doors after many years of graciously serving the community. Mr. White had the unique distinction of receiving many honors. To name a few, he was appointed to serve on the D.C. Board of Pharmacy. He was the recipient of the 1987 Pharmacist of the Year Award and the prestigious Board of Hygiene Award in 1991. As a longtime St. Georgian, he served several years as junior warden and several years as senior warden. He was an active member of the Men of St. George's and received the 1992 Man of Award. Dr. Floyd Lawrence White departed this life in 1997. He always focused on the front windshield and not the rearview mirror.
Grace and peace to you from God our Father and our Lord Jesus Christ. I am Marilyn Jenkins, the priest in charge at St. George's Episcopal Church. Thank you for joining St. George's for our 2022 Litany of Black Saints. What a wonderful way to honor all those women, men, and clergy who, by doing the best they could, and by doing every little bit of good together, overwhelmed the world. I want to give a special thanks to the St. George's Music and Arts Committee and to all those who have made this presentation possible, especially those who read a particular saint. To our two musicians, Pam Alexander and James McKinney, as well as Bobby Telly and Greg Lewis, who sang the traditional spirituals. And our special guest this year, singing for us, Angela Pleasance. Thank you all so very much. And finally, we need to thank all those who took on the technical challenge to pull the entire presentation together, thanking especially Karen May. We hope that you have enjoyed the litany and music brought to you this year. Thank you for joining us.